A lot of people believe that good games need to be perfect, but I personally don't believe that. You don't need to get everything right to be one of the best ever. Sometimes, it's just doing one thing better than it has ever been done before. I've been a fan of The Legend of Zelda practically forever. My first experience with the franchise was actually Zelda 2, the one that people tend to hate. So from my perspective, the games just got infinitely better. I was such a fan that in the early 2000s, I bought one of Nintendo's cube-based gaming devices so I could play the latest entry in Link's quest to find super-powered triangles. But for most, this new Zelda game was a big disappointment. Zelda fans had their expectations really high after the GameCube was officially announced at Nintendo's Space World 2000 event. They showcased demo footage of a new Zelda experience running on GameCube hardware, and it was an exciting step up from the Nintendo 64 games before it. Everyone loved it, and expected that this demo was what the next game would look like. But instead, we got this! Nintendo decided to completely change the visuals of the game and design, something that looked like a cartoon aimed at children. And yeah, people were upset. Fans that had grown up with the series were older now, and liked the idea of the games they loved growing up with them. So to a lot of fans, this Toon Link was a betrayal. And this controversy definitely didn't do anything to help the GameCube's slow sales. But hey, no matter how others felt, I wasn't upset. I thought the graphics looked great. Wind Waker's visuals haven't aged a day in 20 years thanks to this visual design. And the gameplay itself? Well, there was just nothing else like it. Wind Waker was attempting a grander vision compared to the previous 3D Zelda games. A true change of the formula. Something massive and new. Gameplay that would feel like you were exploring a whole uncharted world unbound by the physical walls and limitations of old. And I don't recommend you play it! Yeah, I know I said I liked it when it came out and I called it revolutionary and stuff, but the truth is, it had a lot of problems. Sailing your ship around took forever, and there were a ton of game design choices that were just not player-friendly. That's why I'm not here to talk about the Wind Waker on GameCube. I'm here to talk about my love of The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker HD on the cursed Wii U. Of course, running the game in HD and cleaning up some of the textures is great, but it isn't the only reason Wind Waker HD is better. The GameCube version has flaws. Big ones, I think, that the Wii U release fixes. 1. Link can hold more rupees right at the start of the game. No more having to pass over valuable rupees just because your wallet is full. Which is important when you need to, buy things. 2. The Picto Box can store more pictures, meaning you can take more pictures in one area without having to run and submit your snaps to the Nintendo Gallery just to free space. 3. The 8 Triforce charts you originally needed to collect is reduced to a more reasonable 3, saving you time and rupees. 4. Certain timed events now have extended time, making it less frustrating to play. I'm looking at you, Forest Water, you stupid Forest Water. Back in the day, I gave up playing the GameCube version, but all these changes to the HD version really do make the game way more fun to play. But no change made more of a difference to me than the sailing did. What makes it so much better? Well, to put it simply,
Wii U is faster than GameCube!
The GameCube needed time to load up new islands, so sailing between places had a set pace and speed that was kind of slow. This affected every aspect of the game, because hey, it's a game where everything is separated by water. You kinda do a lot of sailing. But that finally changed thanks to the more powerful Wii U. A sentence you don't hear very often. Wind Waker HD contains a new item called the Swift Sail, which grants you the ability to travel way faster and automatically change the direction of the wind. But speed alone isn't the only benefit the Wii U brought to this game. You've also got the Wii U GamePad. I'd argue that this gamepad was really not well used on the majority of Wii U games released out there, but for the Wind Waker, they found a very specific use. For most, I think they just simply looked at the inventory and the ability to switch out your items quickly. That's true, it was a lot faster, but for me, it was something even better. A map, while you sailed. Folks, I'm playing games right now that still don't do this. When you're traveling the massive blue seas of Wind Waker, you can look down at your screen and adjust your heading easily. You can see exactly where you are and where you're going without the hassle of needing to pause or switch screens. Your trip continues uninterrupted. It's like the Wind Waker was meant for the Wii U's hardware. Finally, the best part of this game was able to truly shine, because that's why we're here today. The Great Sea, as it's called, is what makes this game so special. The Legend of Zelda series for years had limits, hard limits, mountains, walls, and irritating and obnoxious water obstacles. But Wind Waker was different. The water's edge was no longer a limit. Instead, it became the journey. Who needs grassy fields when you have a whole nautical paradise to explore? You had islands you could sail to, treasure to find, and lots of interactive events to engage you on the open seas. And while it's not endless, it did a very good job of making you feel like it was. Usually in open world games like this at the time, water acted as a defiant, invisible wall. A way of the game telling you, stop, you've gone too far. Other games released around this same time, like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, despite the game world being surrounded by water, didn't allow limitless exploration. Yes, some missions did take place on or with boats, but it wasn't the same. You couldn't just go out and explore new areas with them. There were no interesting islands to venture to, and if you went too far out, you'd hit an invisible wall. And don't even try to swim, because this game doesn't like when you try to swim. Despite my issues with the Wind Waker on GameCube, for its time, it is still very impressive. There were very few games that offered this kind of world exploration, and even when this arrived on Wii U 10 years later, it still wasn't that common, which makes it a real shame that Nintendo didn't continue to evolve this type of gameplay in future Zelda titles. There could be many reasons for this, but it definitely didn't help Wind Waker's case that it was released on GameCube and Wii U, two of the worst-selling consoles in Nintendo's history. Sales were disappointing on GameCube, not selling as high as earlier installments. And the HD remaster on Wii U, it probably did worse than the GameCube release. And although I have many criticisms of the Wii U and its hardware, Wind Waker HD is not one of them. That pairing just made sense. With the failure of the Wind Waker, the Zelda series reverted back to a gameplay style closer to the more successful N64 games, staying on land, even up to the present day. Breath of the Wild still largely feels bound to solid ground, lacking that multiple uncharted island exploration aspect I liked so much. Wind Waker's story did continue on the DS, but the experience wasn't even close to what Wind Waker on console was. So in my opinion, Wind Waker itself exists as an original single experience, a diversion from the Zelda tried and true concept with a unique vision and intention. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker HD took an impressive yet slightly flawed game and supercharged its best, most innovative feature. Sailing the virtual seas enhances your sense of adventure and reimagines what an action-adventure game can be. And that's what makes it one of the best ever.